Well, good evening, Raymond. It's nice of you to finally rejoin us again. You were clearly missing last week during our huge emergency podcast with Louis B. talking about the Matt Stafford trade to the Rams and that's its effect on the 49ers. So I wanted to find out where on earth were you? Why were you not here on the GoldCast?
You know, sometimes life gets in the way and you just don't have enough time left over for a Rams fan. Sometimes life gets in the way and you're taking a shower for 45 straight minutes and you just don't hear the call. Sometimes you're rewatching the third film in the Matrix trilogy, wondering what went wrong. Sometimes you find yourself eating food for 45 straight minutes. Cheerios was that food for me.
In the shower while you were watching the Matrix, the third film in the Matrix trilogy.
Yes, that's right.
Because you didn't have enough time for a Rams fan.
Yeah, that's amazing clairvoyance. I'm just surprised you put that all together. I mean, I wasn't going to reveal that, but because I'm very private about my multitasking abilities, but that is how it went down.
This is the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
Boom! Raymond, it's a wrap. It is over. The Super Bowl is come and gone, and Tom Brady and those Buccaneers are Super Bowl champs. A team, they were on the road from the wild card position, faced the number one team in the AFC, and then took them out. Brady got this team to rally in a way that I did not think was possible. But luckily, while the Buccaneers, I was eliminated from my eliminator pool because I chose the Buccaneers the very first week. I won pretty big on Sunday. I bet the Bucs straight up. Then I also bet I did three things needed to happen on my little parlay. So Bucs needed to win the Super Bowl. Brady needed to win the MVP, and he needed to throw 3 touchdown passes, and boy, did that net me a lot of money for very little. It's probably the best Super Bowl bet I've ever done in my life, and I briefly had it on Twitter, and I took it down, so if you didn't see it, it's gone. I can't tell you, but Raymond, I know you have some mixed feelings for this, as evidenced by your background. Now, I have to ask you, Raymond, because I see it like this, so I'm dying to hear your feelings on this. I was rooting for Tom Brady and the Buccaneers because I could not in good faith root for the Kansas City Chiefs after they defeated us in the Super Bowl last year. But you felt a little different, so explain to 49ers faithful, GoldCast Empire, why you were rooting for the Chiefs.
Because this was a hard one. This is much like was it when Seattle played the Pats? Yes.
The Hater Bowl.
Yes. Oh my God. It was kind of like that, where it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. It doesn't matter which opponent you pick. So, I was not interested in seeing another Tom Brady Lombardi trophy. I would rather see the Chiefs go back to back than to see Tom Brady hoist a 7th championship. Granted, the first few are controversial and there's cheating involved. The latter 3, in my opinion, are legitimate, and so is this one. So he's got 4 in my book, in my stat book. Everything else is an asterisk. But I just was tired. I'm tired of seeing him. I'm done. It's been 20 years of this, and he's been there 50% of the time. So I'm good. I'm good. I got enough. I get it. I saw that this Super Bowl. I was like, oh, Tom Brady's in it again. Oh yeah, I've seen this rerun. Yeah. How's this show? How's this episode go again? Yeah, that's right. He usually wins. 70% of the time. And so I'm just was not interested in seeing that rerun once again. And sure enough, he won. I did not watch the game because I had no interest. When you don't have a dog in the fight, you're like unmotivated at all. Like that's how I felt. I was like, I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't care for Patrick Mahomes and them winning But if someone was to win, I would be okay with them winning. And I don't care for Tampa Bay or the Bucs winning. I don't care if it was a different quarterback in Tampa Bay. That would be fine. It's amazing what one difference of a player makes to a team. You had a year ago, you have somebody throwing as many touchdowns as he does, as many interceptions as he does touchdowns, and then going and playing the backup in New Orleans, and then being succeeded by the best in the game right now, and taking them to the whole show and winning it all. And so to me, it was a bittersweet Super Bowl, much like the Seattle Hater Bowl, and it ended in the same stupid result. Or no, did Seattle? Was that Seattle? Seattle lost the first time. No, they lost against the Pats. So it was the same stupid result.
Yeah, they both teams lost back to back. I think they might be the only two teams to have gone back to back besides the Patriots.
Yes, they are the third team to do it in the last 20 years, and they lost. Pats have also lost back to back as well throughout this stretch of theirs.
They've only won back to back. The only time they did it was in 2004. They haven't accomplished it again.
Right, which is good, which shows you how hard it is to win back to back. Pittsburgh did it twice in the 70s. Niners did it once in the 80s, and that's it. And Buffalo lost 4 straight. So,
well, no, then you had the Cowboys that did it twice.
Oh yeah, that's right, the Cowboys.
And then the Patriots in 2004. And the Broncos, and then the Patriots.
Broncos and Patriots. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. That's the order.
That's right. And then Brett Favre lost back to back, I think.
Did he? He's been to 3 total.
He's been to 2.
He lost 1-1, I believe.
He lost 1 and 1-1. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were back to back though. I can't remember. It was during that stretch in the 90s.
Yeah, it was during that stretch.
He beat the Drew Bledsoe Patriots and then lost to the John Elway Broncos. So to me, it was just an uneventful time. I believe I was drinking mimosas at one point in the morning, and then then I had to work, so it was fine. It was great. I did some work in the afternoon, and then I helped do some more work later that night. So when I was done, I didn't see the result. Well, my phone notified me of the result, and then you just swipe away as quickly as you can. You don't want to look at my eyes. It's very blinding. But I'm glad it's over because I'm ready to get back into the mode where my focus is on the Niners winning their 6th championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the Niners, watching this game, well, first of all, like I said, I in good faith could not root for the Chiefs after they defeated us. I just could not do it. And to be honest, the fact that this team had rallied so hard around Tom Brady, I just wanted to see it done, and we talked about this off air, off the line, as we say sometimes here at the GoldCast. Right. And we discussed this, you and I. I was talking to you about how impressed I was with the fact that he just has a level of leadership that seems to be very unique unto him, and I felt like this was the time that I'd heard more about it in the last 2 weeks than I'd ever heard it coming out of Patriots camp. Patriots are very tight-lipped about everything. There's kind of an uber paranoia that follows the Patriots team, and so they always, nothing gets leaked out ever. And I felt like this was the first time I heard players being really, really vocal about Tom Brady, and he texted the entire team every night for 2 weeks telling them that they were going to win. We will win, and he kind of just kept drilling it into their minds that they were going to win this game. He talked about honor. He said like a week before the game, he talked about honor and playing a kid's game and the honor, the privilege this is to be able to play at this level and to be playing it in this particular game. And it was clearly obvious, like you said, what a difference one player makes. His ability to rally this team was really impressive. On the road, 3 straight games from the wild card position, defeating in a row Breeze, Rodgers, and then Mahomes. I mean, whether or not, regardless of how you feel about Tom Brady, you have to admit that's pretty impressive. Like that, what a run this team went on, and that defense really, really came to play.
I'm impressed this much, which is hard to get out of me. It's hard to get out of me, really hard to get out of me. So they should be grateful for that.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure Brady is very grateful. On top of that, it was interesting to watch the game as a Niners fan. They were running a blueprint that looked very similar to what we did last year. I think we ran the ball maybe a little bit more than they did, but essentially you had the same exact, all the same arguments we presented last year. I felt were the same this year. There's a Kansas City Chiefs team that couldn't really run the ball. They were one-dimensional. There was basically, they basically had their receivers. They didn't have that
elite passing and mediocre defense and no running game to be heard of.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially the difference. Was this year the difference between the Bucs and the Niners? I thought this year was the fact that their offensive line was so banged up. The Chiefs were. Their offensive line was so banged up, and the Bucs were able to exploit that at a level that the Niners could not.
It's hard. Well, it's hard to stay healthy when you play that much football. For the Chiefs, speaking for the Chiefs, and they were not as banged up as they were last year, and I think that was a big advantage for Tampa Bay's pass rush in this game because I heard, from what you told me and what little I've seen, Mahomes was flustered and was running for his life the whole time, much like our quarterbacks were doing all season long, and getting injured for it. So it's no surprise that was the focal point of the defensive scheme, because that's absolutely what Robert Saleh would have done if we were in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what occurred. They dropped two high safeties, ran their front four, and basically smothered Mahomes and smothered those wide receivers. Mahomes ran for 495 yards in the backfield behind the line.
He had a Lamar Jackson game.
Yeah, but only horizontally, left to right. That's all he was doing. He was going east-west. He wasn't going north-south. It was a real tough situation for him, and it was clear. I mean, they only scored 9 points. They kicked 3 field goals. That was it. I really enjoyed it. It was frustrating a little bit to watch the Buccaneers play a really similar game plan and execute it and succeed for 4 straight quarters. We were within 7 minutes of achieving the same thing, and then Mahomes would have lost 3 playoffs in a row, basically, 1 AFC and 2 Super Bowls, had we just held on for 7 more minutes or Jimmy G doesn't overthrow the ball. I mean, there's a lot of...
defensively, they were much more sound last year. They didn't give up scoring drives to us via penalty as much as they were gift wrapping that to the Tampa Bay Bucs. They did it on multiple drives, and you just can't do that in the NFL without paying for it one way or another. And in the Bucs case, they took advantage, I believe, every single time. So if the Bucs were doing that to us last year, it would have been the same result. No amount of a 7-minute comeback would have, it would have been a different psychology versus a 2-possession psychology. It would have been a blowout psychology, and it wouldn't have been, that rally wouldn't have mattered. It would have been garbage time points, and we would have had, the sound of mind to just know that we had the game in the bag, especially when they're gift wrapping drives like that. Because Kyle Shanahan's going to tear you apart, with play calling when you're giving up penalties to put us back in the red zone and giving, on 3rd and 3rd and short. Coming up short on the defensive end to give us a fresh new set of downs. They just gift wrapped that stuff, and that was frustrating to hear. And I did see like 1 or 2 of those occurrences when I was passing by the television set, but that was kind of the most frustrating part because I was like, wow, they didn't play that badly against us, but whatever. It's just the luck of the draw. Kansas City just, in my opinion, was just not prepared. We're extremely undisciplined, and it came back to bite them.
Yeah, and the injuries did them no favors. I mean, they were really banged up.
Health. Yep.
And Mahomes was limping by the end of the game. And I'll tell you something really interesting. Last year, the Chiefs were the most penalized team for holding calls. And I don't know if you've read this. This came out, on the beat writer stuff here in San Francisco, but that the 49ers actually believed that they believed that they were going to get some of those calls, and they said, man, if they do this like what they've been averaging on these holding calls, we're gonna win. This is gonna be a huge day for us. And they basically swallowed their whistles for the entire game. And so I'm wondering if there was a little bit of that residual too. I mean, remember, these refereeing staffs, they talk from season to season, so it is very quite possible they're going, hey, look, man, we let a lot of this stuff go with the Chiefs last year, and the refereeing needs to be on it. We can't allow that to happen again.
It's a different crew too. The previous crew that did last year was not the same crew that did this year. And the other factor too that I think plays into it, in addition to what you contributed, is that the receivers of Tampa Bay are much larger and bigger. These are big. Mike Evans, big time receiver. Chris Godwin, big time receiver. We don't have big
Gronkowski at tight end.
Yeah, Gronkowski. Yes, exactly. These are big mismatch players where if you're gonna try to hold and get away with the same behavior pattern that they exhibited last year, I think it's going to be much harder to shroud that type of that type of shady play, because the mismatch in size between the Tampa Bay's wide receiver core and Kansas City's secondary was just a much larger gap versus our core versus their core. So I think it was just much harder to get away with that crew too. So again, to kind of summarize what we've said here, a little bit of residual from not calling that last year, which was unbelievable, to also getting a new crew in there, and also the difference in the wide receiver core this time around too. It's much harder to get away with that when you have a big ass Mike Evans in your face. When you pull someone that big, it's a little bit more obvious. So, I think there was a few different factors going in the way of Tampa Bay that also helped contributing to garnering more flags, which unfortunately we didn't get last year.
Yeah, so that was interesting, and it was interesting to see, and that was probably the part that was the most frustrating. But in general, yep. I was pretty impressed. I was pretty impressed with the Bucs. I was pretty impressed with their ability to rally, and it shows once again that it is very difficult to win back to back, and hopefully the Niners can make a comeback and really rally. Now, next week we are going to have my boy Trevor James. He is the most diehard Chiefs fan I know, and we are going to be bringing him on for a 49ers Chiefs reconciliation episode. It is now time for me to release my hate from our brothers in the AFC West. I've always considered the Chiefs the brothers of the Niners, and so this year they went through my 1 year of completely rooting against them. They delivered what I wanted, which is a lot. Now they get to feel the sting of the loss of the Super Bowl, just like we did the year before. And so we're going to bring them on so that we can bring Niner Empire, Chiefs Empire back together as brothers. It's where our quarterbacks used to go to die, but that's not going to happen for about 10 years because Mahomes is there. And so this is a team that we have a long-standing, very positive relationship with. We both hate the Raiders, the whole nine. So that'll be a fun episode. Now, moving on, Raymond, let's talk some Warriors, brother. So the Warriors, Raymond, here we are. I'm looking at the standings.
Still look like the Warriors.
Still look like the Warriors. As of Thursday, February 11th, we do play the Orlando Magic today. They're sitting at 13-12, just over 500. They're 9-7 in the conference. They're 8-5 at home, 5-7 away, and literally 5-5 in the last 10 games, and they've won one. They're on a one-game win streak. They defeated the San Antonio Spurs on Tuesday, and now we'll be facing Orlando. And so obviously we're facing some injuries up and down the squad, but give me your assessment of the last week of Warriors basketball. I feel like it's been a little bit more of the same. Fun, scrappy team. You have a big win against the Mavericks over the weekend. Huge, put Luka Doncic and that team in their place, only to lose to them by 1 point just a couple days later. But what's your assessment of this current week in Warriors basketball?
Well, I felt like coming into the week was a good opportunity to actually get some momentum and put a winning streak together, a winning streak of more than just 2 games, which has not happened yet. And injury just really set this team back, in my opinion. Every piece is vital, but in the Warriors' case, they lost both centers that rotate between starting and coming off the bench. So you don't have size, you don't have length, you don't have a viable presence in the paint, and that makes a huge difference. You're playing small ball the entire week. Looney's out he's got a sprained ankle. And we find out that Wiseman's injury is it's going to take more than just a week. So good luck playing small ball. I mean, they obviously can still put up points, and they've kind of kept the same pace that they've kept all season long since the two back-to-back blowouts in the beginning of the season, and that's win one, lose one, win two, lose two. It's kind of the same thing over and over again, which is a little frustrating. But if Wiseman and Looney are healthy, you sweep the Mavs in that series. If Wiseman and Looney are healthy, you sweep the Spurs in that series, and you've got a 4-game win streak, and you are no longer in the 8th position in the West. So a huge difference that health makes for this team right now. The other thing, too, if you look at the losses and wins, with the exception of the Suns blowout, which was very similar to the last Spurs blowout in terms of the scoring, the Warriors are winning convincingly in the wins and losing narrowly in the losses. So that tells me they're really not that far off from being able to put together a good streak. They've just got to find a way to be a little bit more consistent, and they will close those narrow losses, because that's what I'm seeing out of this team right now this past week. So again, wins, very convincing. And in the Mavericks and the Spurs case, 2 blowouts. And then in the losses, 1 point to the Mavs, 2 possessions to the Spurs. So they're not that far. And versus the Celtics, they were also a 2-possession loss to the Celtics. So again, we're seeing that. And against the Pistons, wipe the floor with them, like everyone's been wiping the floor with them. So you have 3 blowouts and then 3 narrow losses, and then the 1 blowout to the Suns. They just let that one get a little bit out of hand there, which is unfortunate. But the fact is, they are not that far away. Once they get healthy again, they can get back to working on getting more consistent. And then these losses that I'm seeing here, these last 3 losses, I think those become wins, because they're really close. So that's what I see, which I think is very encouraging towards this latter half or as we're past. I mean, they're 25 games into it, so we're now 1/3 of the way through the season. So that's encouraging to me. I'm an optimist, so that's what I see.
And if you look at the record of these teams, there's not a huge difference, right? So you got the Spurs sitting at the 6th seed, they're 14-11. You got the Nuggets sitting at the 7th seed, they're 13-11. You have the Warriors at the 8th seed, 13-12. The Grizzlies, 10-10. The Kings, 12-12. The Mavericks, 12-14. So that is spots 6 through 12. And all these teams are kind of hovering right around the same amount of wins. They're all just hovering just under 500 or a little bit over 500. Just a couple wins vault you up into that, fifth or sixth spot. But even if this is where we end up for the entire season and we have to go, and play the 1 game in tournament, where they have to play to the little play-in tournament to get in, I still like this team's chances of making to the playoffs. I went from believing the Warriors were not going to make a run, not going to get into the playoffs, to now looking at the landscape and going, I think we might be the 8th seed. We might have to face the Lakers first. But as you mentioned, pulling a couple wins together, getting on a 4 or 5 game win streak might be just enough games. Just doing it once this season might be enough to put us in there, like Candlestick Will was saying a couple weeks ago. Get us somewhere in the middle there, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th seed, and then maybe we get through the first round. We don't have to pay one of the big guns till the second round and give us a little deep in the playoffs. Steve Kerr,
they would have been the 5th seed had they won 4 games straight. Had they swept the Spurs and Mavericks, which I thought that they were totally capable of doing, if they weren't missing both their centers, I think they do win those 4 games. And I think they end up at 15-10 versus 13-12, and they're right behind the Suns, who are 15-9 at the 5 spot. So I think they're in 5th place if they're healthy, and they're not right now. And unfortunately, because they're so fragile with this group and they haven't quite fully gelled yet, that all these role players matter. So the fact that they're missing two big ones at the same position, I think is a huge drawback. So the sooner they can get them back, the better, because I do think that eventually in these next 2/3 left in the season, that they will put together a couple of win streaks of 4 or 5 games, possibly even more, best case scenario. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, best case scenario. I'm not sure if I could see them going past a 4 or 5 game win streak right now. I'm just not sure if we have the offensive firepower to do that long term. But I still like this team's chances to get into the playoffs, and they are still really fun to watch. Every game they're right in it, and that's really all you can ask from a Warriors team that the Warriors team is currently constructed.
Yep.
So
Agree.
So, Raymond, we will be back next week with our Chiefs Niners reconciliation podcast. Let's bring the two teams back together. I will release my hate of the Chiefs. They have delivered me their Super Bowl loss, so now I will return my love back to them. That's how this works. Because of you, because you lose, I love in your loss.
It's reciprocal.
It's reciprocal. You lose, I love. That's how this works. And then obviously we will continue our yearly coverage of the Warriors, and so concludes another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis I, baby.
Boom! We'll see you next time. Same GoldCast time, same GoldCast channel.